As I sit here on the ground on Tisha B'av, I'd like to introduce the second part of the two-part Out of Town podcast episodes, where I'm joined by Juby Charnowitz, and we continue detailing her adventures alongside Rabbi Yoel Gold and his film crew, first in Colombia and then in Rome. We continue to discuss her take on the Chinuch system for mainstream children. I think you'll all agree with me when I say that supporting and elevating souls is really what Juby Charnowitz is invested in. And with that, let's go there. Before I ask you about Colombia, I wanted to just...
Not the university.
Not the university.
What happens when your history becomes someone else's secret?
The Vatican holds incredible treasures of our stories.
Those who talk don't know. Those who know don't talk.
When
I went to Rome, I saw the menorah.
He saw a menorah that was solid gold.
You can see up on the roof is the menorah.
How far would you go to uncover the truth?
Something that I love when I'm talking to people is seeing the expansiveness of a human being.
When somebody said Medellin, drug cartel. You still want to go?
I still want to go. I said, sign me up.
And that's what we're missing, because we're focused on knee socks. That's why Sarah Schneer started the Beis Yaakov movement, to crush people's neshamas.
It's insane to me that before these kids develop a sense of self, they know they're being rejected.
I forwarded your email to a good friend of mine. His name is Yoel Gold.
Your whole story is not your mother passing away. Your whole story is not Arnechani. They are such magnificent aspects of who you are and how you've grown. People are so much, and Baruch Hashem, with all the, the internet, I guess, we're able to see so much more. We're able to really appreciate how much each person is and how all those different aspects, like your career, plus your personality, plus your hobbies, can impact people's lives. And now I want to ask you about Colombia and how that became a place, a community, a part of your life.
So we had a close family friend who went through a terrible divorce, and he had gone out with some women in America, and it just wasn't working for him. And someone read him a shidduch of a girl who lives in Medellin, Colombia, who's a geirim. And as wild as it sounded for him, he's a very mild-mannered Canadian colo guy at the time, and he went out with the girl, and they ended up getting engaged, and nobody was able to come for the wedding, and I felt badly. He really spent a lot of time in our house. He was really a member of our family, really. And I said, okay, I've got to go to Medellin, Colombia, and go to the wedding. And I went. I was a little scared, because it sounds like when somebody said Medellin, the next word, like if I had to make a word association, I'd say drug cartel.
Drug cartel.
Medellin, drug cartel.
See, I don't know the names of the places, but I know that that's an issue in some of these countries.
Pablo Escobar.
That's where?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So you
still want to go?
I mean, I still want to go. I said, sign me up. I'll go.
He's no longer living. We went to the wedding, and I met a community that is all geirim. The incredible thing is, like, they work so hard to be Jewish, and many of them actually discovered that their families come from B'nai Anusim, meaning like Moranos, people who were affected by the Spanish Inquisition, possibly forcibly converted or converted because to leave Spain at that time with no money and no belongings, and to travel on these boats. There were a lot of pirates. People became slaves. People walked on foot out of Spain, and whole families died in the deserts and forests, and it was very dangerous. So there were some people who just, out of just being frightened, or just felt like they had no choice, and they would convert on the surface and then secretly be Jewish. And then some of them came to the New World and thought that they could live an authentic Jewish life, in the New World. But the Inquisition followed them there, and they had to continue pretending to be Catholic. So you find all these interesting things there, like you find hidden mikvahs there. They're actually Catholic statues, but in the base of the statue is hollow, and they put a mezuzah. So every day when they walked out and kissed the statue, they were actually kissing the mezuzah inside. There are currently over 30 geirim communities in Latin America. And so I met this geirim community in Medellin, Colombia, and I just fell in love with them. They're the most incredible people. And like when they hug you and they say, I love you, they mean it with all their heart. When I was there, the rabbi wasn't there. The rabbi was in the States. He was raising money for a mikveh because up until that point, the women would have to go to the mikveh in the forest. It was very, very scary. And also when a Beis Din would come in to be Megayer people, they would be Megayer people in the forest. And what happened was they went in the forest at once and to do gerus, someone jumped out with a machete and mugged them. It was after that incident that the rabbi decided it's really not safe for the women to be going in the forest at night. We have to build a mikveh. So he came to the States and he was fundraising for a mikveh. So when I came back from Colombia, I found out that he was here, and we invited him for Shabbos, and we had an incredible Shabbos with him, and we found out his whole story, and we found out that he was actually not born Jewish. And this rabbi, his name is Rabbi Yoel Viegas, he became a minister at the age of 19, and by 26, he had actually become a senior minister, and he had grown the church from 300 people to 3,000 people. Because he had grown the church to a mega church, it made him a target. And it was 2004, and it was the time of the gangs and Pablo Escobar, and he actually was at a church picnic and got kidnapped at gunpoint by a group called the ELN Guerrillas, and all he had on him was a jacket and a Bible, and he was taken to the rainforest and held at gunpoint for a month. So he literally read the Bible cover to cover, and his focus was the Jews were taken out, Hashem took the Jews out of Mitzrayim, and he said if God could take the Jews out of Mitzrayim, out of Egypt, then surely he could take me out of here. Well, they wanted an exorbitant ransom, something that his family couldn't afford. People in the church, people are pretty poor, so they couldn't afford the ransom that was being demanded. His father actually knew Pablo Escobar's older brother from school. So his father called the Escobars and he said, can they help ransom his son? And they helped negotiate the ransom, and he was released after a month. And he came out of this, and he actually had a lot of questions for the church. He asked the senior church all these questions about faith, and they said, have faith. They didn't answer any of the questions. He decided that the answers to his questions are in Israel. He got on a plane. He approached any rabbi he could find and started asking questions, and they answered all the questions, and there was not even a hesitation. He realized his truth, and he went back to Medellin, and he told the church, I quit. And the church said, wait a second, you can't quit. You are the minister of a mega church. You have to get up and tell them. So he got up and basically renounced Yashka and said, I cannot believe in this anymore, and I have seen the truth, and I am actually leaving the church to become an Orthodox Jew. And 600 people said, we're coming with you. And they started a gerus process. 300 dropped out of it, and 300 converted. So 10% of this church converted to Orthodox Judaism, and is now a shul in the suburb of Medellin, Colombia, called Bejo. He became the rabbi because he and a few other members of the church, when they converted, they actually went to diaspora yeshiva in Israel, and they got smicha. So himself and an assistant rabbi, and then there's another rabbi who learns with the children. They have currently 364 people there, 80 families. 20 children from that community are currently serving in the IDF. I said to the rabbi, and this is the part that most people don't know, I said to the rabbi, Rabbi, you were here in the States for a month raising money for the mikveh. How much money did you raise? And he said, I raised $7,000. And I said, Rabbi, that is not good by American standards. You were away from your family and your kahila for a whole month, and all you raised was $7,000. I said, the problem is people don't know who you are. He doesn't speak English so well. We need to get in touch with Rabbi Yoel Gold. And if Rabbi Gold would make a film about you and your community, I think the film will go viral, and then people will really come and want to help you. I said, the problem is I don't know Rabbi Gold. I don't know how to reach him. So I'll have to do some research into how to reach him and tell him your story. So Rabbi Elad went back to Colombia, and I decided that I'm bringing my two younger children, Sharon and Rami, to Colombia. They're teenagers, and I decided that I'm going to bring them to Colombia. I wanted them to experience what I experienced, to see this community of geirim, Do you know that when they say Shema on a weeknight Maariv, they say it in one voice, like we do on Yom Kippur? It's really meaningful to daven there. Like I say to people, if I can't get to Israel, I like to go there. It gives me like spiritual reboot. That's incredible. And it's really Yivdu Hashem B'Simcha over there. Like you see the beauty in how much they embrace the Yiddishkeit and how much it means to them. So I brought my kids there, and at that point we actually met the Rebbitzin, who used to be the church secretary. Right. Her name is Karen, and we met their two beautiful children. And during the week, the rabbi lives on this beautiful farm in the Andes Mountains. And for Shabbos and Yantiv, he lives in a small apartment above the shul with his family. And we went to the farm, and I met the family, and I saw that his son Yitzchak speaks really good English, and he was playing sports with my son, and he was very interested in learning. And I said, Yitzchak, you know what? I think that you should go to Camp Romamu with my son next summer. And in fact, Rabbi Pfeiffer from Camp Romamu has a program called Torah at Twilight. And every night the boys learn a Dvar Halacha, and it's really nice. And I think that when school starts, you should start logging in with them and go on the meeting and actually, learn with them, and you'll develop more English skills. You'll meet some of the boys, you'll meet the rabbis, and maybe then you'll be able to go to the camp. So we went back to the States, school starting, and Yitzchak Viegas began to go on to Torah Twilight. And this went on for, maybe about 2 weeks. And one night my son, Avrami, comes over to me and he says, Mommy, I think you need to tell Rabbi Pfeiffer who Yitzchak is, because he called on him and he said, Yitzchak Viegas, where are you from? And Yitzchak said, Colombia. And he looked a little shocked. And he said, I think Rabbi Pfeiffer thinks that his Zoom was hacked. So I sat down and I wrote Rabbi Pfeiffer an email, and I told him the whole story about Rabbi Elad and the community. And I said to him, I would love for Yitzchak to come to your camp. Could we make arrangements for him to come to the camp for the upcoming summer? Anyway, I get a call from Rabbi Pfeiffer a short time later. Mrs. Charnowitz, I have never received an email like that before. And he had all kinds of questions. And he said, I hope you don't mind. I forwarded your email to a good friend of mine. His name is Yoel Gold. Could he call you?
Today's episode of the Out of Town podcast is being sponsored by Malka Maxine Friedman from Hammond Real Estate. Malka Tzipora, as we refer to her, has been so instrumental in helping build the Brighton community, and has so patiently sat on the phone with myself and probably many others to help us navigate the vast community that is Boston Jewish community. And fast forward a few years after moving to Boston, Malka Tzipora walked me and my husband through our first home buyer's experience with so much calmness and clarity. You know who to call. Malka Tzipora Friedman, Hammond Real Estate.
So this is the incredible part of the story, the Hashgacha Pratis, is that I told Rabbi Elad that we need Yoel Gold to make a film about him. So, Kederach HaTeva, like a natural way would be, I would research who Yoel Gold is, where does he live? You know what? I would have found out that my two stepsons were good friends with him. Basically, I had many ways to reach him I didn't even know about, but he reached me. And that's the amazing thing. Like Hashem wanted this to happen. He reached me, he called me, and I think his story was that when Rabbi Pfeiffer sent him the email and called him up and said, you got to look at what I just sent you, he was in a department store buying socks. And he said he put down the socks and he called me. So I said, yeah, I said, the story knocked your socks off. Literally. And when he heard the story, he called me right away and he says, I'm bringing a film crew to Medellin. And I said, you know what? I suggest that you go with my family because we've been there a few times. And we wanted to get the community present. So Rabbi Gold spoke to Art Scroll. Art Scroll donated these chumashim, and 80 chumashim, Spanish and English. And Rabbi Gold and I were able to get them out in the shul. And people started literally hugging the chumash like a baby and weeping. And we couldn't understand the reaction exactly. Like they were so emotional to get these chumashim. And Rabbi Elad explained it to us. He said, you don't really understand, but a chumash like this would cost the average person here half a month's salary. They would never be able to afford a chumash like this. So it was so beautiful that Art Scroll donated these chumashim. I was just so moved beyond belief to see. I mean, I was introduced to one woman who had actually lost all of her belongings in a flood in her apartment, and she said, but now I own a chumash. I've actually gone to many of their houses, and the chumash proudly stands on display. Like if someone will come into my house or your house and see all this farm that we have, they think we're very, very rich. And it makes you appreciate what you have. Like I can walk into, any Jewish bookstore here in Flatbush and get anything I need.
Right.
And I don't even have to think about it if I want to buy a chumash, right?
Mm.
And for them, this was like life-changing.
It's like they're living this alternate reality of like, you hear about people who are really moser nefesh for Torah. It's like, imagine they had to bring Torah into their lives. They had to study it. Like, how did they have access if they couldn't even go and buy a chumash? Like an art scroll chumash must be the most basic thing people would buy. Like they had to do all that learning and changing their whole lives without having access.
Right. Even like something that seems like silly that we could easily get, like when we made this pre-Hanukkah party, and I brought plastic dreidels and chocolate Hanukkah gelt. And I thought like the children would enjoy it, but the adults were putting their hands out. They wanted it. They were so excited. Like, where can you buy a dreidel in Medellin, Colombia?
Right.
Where can you get chocolate Hanukkah gelt?
Oh my goodness.
After we did the film, it's funny because both Rabbi Gold and I began calling the community in Medellin our kahila.
Our kahila.
And I said to him before the film came out that Tisha B'av, I said, you know what? People are going to want to help them when they hear the story, and they're going to want to contribute in some way and help in some way. And how are people going to get money to Medellin, Colombia? And so Rabbi Gold and I decided we're going to start a not-for-profit to help this community and other communities like it. And we named the organization Akabetz. And the reason why we named it Akabetz is because it comes from a nevuah from Yeshayahu Hanavi that before Mashiach comes, Hashem is going to be Mekabetz Nidchei Yisrael. He's going to gather all of the scattered of Israel. But then the Navi says, V'oda kabetz v'nikbatzav. So Rashi says, who's V'oda kabetz? If you gathered already all of the Nidchei Yisrael, who's the V'od? And Rashi says, the geirim.
Mm.
So I really believe that these neshamos were destined to come back to us, to our people. All the neshamos of the geirim stood with us at Har Sinai. They got scattered amongst other nations for whatever reasons, and now these neshamos have to come back, and this is the time. And that's why we're seeing this really tremendous awakening. I mean, some of these people have gone through incredible journeys, and in fact, like Rabbi Gold has some of this featured in the movie Sold, but then we actually came back to Colombia together and made a sequel called Coming Home.
I think I remember seeing this. I came over on Tisha B'av.
You did, yeah.
To this house, and we sat and we watched it, and
Yeah. So this family decided to become Jewish at the peak of anti-Semitism in Venezuela at their own risk. I'm very close with them. In fact, their little 6-year-old daughter, she tells people, I have a grandmother who lives in New York. Her name is Juby.
Aww.
I love them. I really love them. And
that's so sweet.
I love going. In fact, I'm going again next week.
You're going next week?
I have. And the funniest thing is, I have been to Medellin, Colombia, this is going to be my 12th time.
Wow.
I do not speak Spanish. People ask me, like, how do you communicate with them?
Yeah.
I said, So,
well, when I met this Rabbi Elad and his wife at Avrami's bar mitzvah, I remembered, like, just because one of them spoke English more or less, you still see, like, you were able to share joy. You were able to really connect, and it's also a lot of unspoken communication when they meet other Jewish people. No, like, we're part of this with you, and it doesn't matter how we got here. We're all here together, and there's something very warm about it.
They're so excited to touch another Jew, to just hug another Jew. If you come to their shul, every woman in that shul is going to give you the biggest hug, and they mean it. I got several messages today. When are you coming already? We're counting down the days. And it's such a nice feeling.
Yeah.
It's kind of.
Do you stay in their homes when you go? Do you stay in a hotel?
So I stay. There's an Airbnb, like a really nice new one with apartments, where when people visit the community, they could stay there for Shabbos. And I've had people actually call me after they saw the films and ask me if they could go down there and spend a Shabbos. And what's amazing is the outpouring of love and support that they've gotten since these 2 films came out has been really amazing. we're still trying to raise money to help them start a school because the children don't have a Jewish school there,
Right.
and that's really essential for the next generation. But by the way, Yitzchak was able to get into the camp and went to 2 beautiful summers to Romamu and gained so much. He made his first siyum on Gemara in Romamu, and that was so exciting. That gave him a taste of learning with the other boys in a certain way that he can't really do in Colombia. And the incredible thing is that, Baruch Hashem, I was actually able to get him into Cherry Hill Yeshiva, where my son goes, Foxman Yeshiva in Cherry Hill. So he came in at the end of January, and he is now learning in Beis Medrash there. And we're so excited because he is the first boy born in Beja, Colombia, to actually be in a yeshiva. And all the boys love him in the school. He loves the boys. And we've also tried to help some other older boys get into, there's a yeshiva, wonderful, wonderful yeshiva in Muncie called Torah David. And that's a yeshiva for geirim and Balei Tshuva. It's run by Rabbi Simon. And it's also just such a warm, wonderful place. And we've sent 2 boys so far there.
Right.
And we're hoping to send a 3rd now.
Did they get their mikvah?
They gained so much. They got their mikvah.
Okay.
Yes, they did. There's a wonderful person who actually watched both films. He said when the first film came out, he wanted to hug Rabbi Elad. He said but he forgot. People get busy with their lives. When the second film came out, he said, Yoel Gold never makes a film about the same subject twice. He says, I meant to do something. He bought tickets, he got on a plane, and he flew to Colombia, and he went to visit Rabbi Elad. And he actually has a business where he supplies different products for mikvahs. And he went and brought duffel bags full of all kind of mikvah supplies and donated them to the mikvah, but also actually helped them to build a proper shower in the mikvah and fix up the bathroom and make it really, really new and beautiful and special, so that when the women come in, they have like this beautiful place to go to. And the mikvah is actually on the rabbi's farm, which is interesting. Certainly a much more safe and secure place than going in the forest.
Right.
Also bought them a washer and a dryer. Before that, and the women had to bring their own towels. And here, he just elevated the whole experience. And
it's such a mitzvah.
He's incredible. People donated things like Sefer Torah, tefillin, svarim. A family with a child with a medical condition donated a shas. And so it's really quite amazing.
So the reach really did have a big reach. It really did help contribute to this community.
Touched a lot of people. We still have a lot of work to do.
Obviously, it's important to you, your whole Tafkid, in order to get the children, what the services they need, suing, the Department of Education, and all the different opportunities that you help with children with special needs. And then what I'm hearing you talk about with the geirim communities, that they need these schools for the next generation for their Jewish children who need to learn and need to be integrated. And I know that you've had some really powerful messages to share about education in general for the standard mainstream, perhaps in town children as well, and what parenting and being involved in the mainstream chinuch has been like, on the other end of both those very, very, very diverse, parts of the spectrum.
First of all, I think I didn't really, you know this, but other people might not know this, but after Arnachani, I actually was able to get remarried and actually have 5 wonderful stepchildren, and who I love with all my heart, and they're my kids. I love them so much. In fact, you're very close with one of them.
That's how I know you.
One of the locusts.
One of the locusts.
Right. But also, I was able to have 2 healthy children, biologically, like my own.
Wow.
And I'm happy that I had Arnachani first, before parenting healthy children, because I gained and learned so much from parenting Arnachani and loving them. It gave me so much more perspective. Some people really don't stop and smell the roses. And I feel like because of Arnachani, I don't just stop and smell the roses. I actually look at every petal. I appreciate child development in a whole different way. I appreciate, even when the child has a full-blown temper tantrum, in a whole different way. I have so much more patience as Arna Khani's mom, parenting my other children.
Yeah.
I feel like it just gave me a whole different perspective. And this whole Tafkid perspective has actually helped me to parent Shir Navrami. So as we go through school and typical school experiences, not just with Shir Navrami, but with some of the younger stepchildren who I was involved with when they were in schools. And I see like a lot of the pluses and minuses of the current system. And I also see like people try very hard, but not everyone fits into the system.
Right.
So for various reasons. But I found one thing that's very interesting after I became a special education advocate is a lot of the youth who are, quote, at risk actually have learning disabilities that were never addressed.
Mm.
And these children were either just promoted through school. It just has repercussions for their whole life and the way they see themselves. So I've seen a lot of that. We have to create a system where it's not one size fits all.
Right.
It's so important to see the child in their individuality and help them to achieve their best success, their tafkid.
Yeah.
For some people, it's, the child, may have a learning disability of some sort. Others, it may be they have anxiety, they're shy, they're bullied. We hear a lot of that.
Sometimes the environment changing is the entire solution.
Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's also just being able to be sensitive to that child. And I understand when you have a school that has 60 children, it's very different than when you have a school that has 60 children per grade.
Yeah.
Right? So I understand it's very, very difficult, but we can't lose the perspective on the individual.
Right.
That child needs to feel like they count. So I think there needs to be options where there are smaller schools, and I think people have begun to see that. Some schools have started. I mean, some children just can't learn in a class of 30.
Right.
And they're better off learning in a class of 15.
One of the things I love about being out of town that is also a challenge is that the school is what the school is. You don't have a million options, and the grades are kind of small depending on the class. It's really something remarkable to me that as much as you have to advocate for your kid, and sometimes the resources aren't available when there aren't enough people needing the resources. But one thing that I will say that I value and I am grateful for every single day is that they want you. And I think that's something that's missing in some of these broader, bigger places. If you don't fit in this box, then maybe we just don't need you. Like, you can go somewhere else, take your issues somewhere else. We don't want to deal with it. And in, where I live in Boston, it's like, even if this is a struggle, we value that you're here. And I hope it's translated to the kids, because some kids do struggle when they're not getting the resources they need. Maybe they would do better in a bigger environment, or maybe, I don't know, there's certain resources that, the school can't fund, but I hope it gets translated to the kids that but you're in a school that wants to work with you, that wants to make this, the best way it can.
That's also a challenge for in-town parents, because when you're in a small out-of-town community, they'll accept your child into the yeshiva or Beis Yaakov, pretty much no matter what. They'll pretty much accommodate most things. But here it's much more challenging, especially if the child has any learning disabilities or any kind of anxiety or behavioral issues. There's just so many children that, they'll pass the buck and just say, okay, your child doesn't fit here, they'll fit somewhere else.
Right.
And I've actually heard horror stories from parents, a family that moved from an out-of-town community to a more in-town type of community. And they were there a year with 5 children, and finally got 4 out of 5 into some sort of school. But they missed months of school and had to homeschool, and the youngest child is still not in school, and we're praying that she gets into a school.
There are Tehillim lists going around. It's insane to me that before these kids develop a sense of self, they know they're being rejected. to me, it's like, there was one day where I told my husband, Ellie, I was like, I think we need to move to one of these communities that obviously does not have enough schools available. They obviously have so many other resources that people are excited about. And then they get there and they're like, but wait, who's making the new school to accommodate this group, this type, this surplus of humans that need education? I was like, Ellie, I think we're moving. Like, we're not opening new schools. We have a school that we can, Baruch Hashem, we have a school that I would love to help support as best as I can for my kids where I am. But it was heartbreaking to me that there are Tehillim lists, that there are kids talk about losing like Yiddishkeit. Like, I just,
so heartbreaking.
There's rejection before there's even self.
Right.
This is the view of growing up in a frum community. I can't even like imagine it. Like, I just want to say that I have so much hakaras hatov as someone who is not fit the mold, fit the box, New York, growing up necessarily, very artistic. And I had so much independence and creative ideas that like were overflowing out of the box that was like really made for me. I still was accepted. I still had some wonderful teachers and friends.
You were the lead of the school play. I mean, like, how could they not accept you? Who would sing in the play?
I just think it's a testament to who they were in the school that I ended up in. Baruch Hashem, that not all my friends who went to the exact same schools would say the same thing. But my experience within that school was I put myself out there the best that I can. And I said, this is just who I am. And it worked. It worked for me. It didn't work for everyone, but there's this box, like you said, and the box is like safety. I think that's a big issue we have. We have to stop being so safe. I think our relationships will be better. I think there would be a lot more acceptance. I think it would be messier, but it would be more wholesome and meaningful. And I think that's what we're missing. And I'm grateful that I have a slice of out of town for that.
So I had an experience with one of my children actually trying to get her into a high school and going for the interview. And at the time, that school was looking for like very, very math and science oriented girls. And this regular, typical child, but definitely challenged in math and is not going to do well in the science test and is not going to be the valedictorian.
Right.
It has a lot of other talents. And I go for the interview and they're trying to push me. Did you apply to such and such school in Queens? And I said, we live in Flatbush. And did you apply to Beis Yaakov Borough Park? And I said, that's not for my child because we live in Flatbush. And we go down this route, like basically we're going after school, after school, after school. Did you try this? Did you try that? And I understood where the person was coming from.
Right.
And I said, look, my child would like to go to this school. And the response was, I don't want to crush her neshama. And my response to that, and maybe because I'm a special ed advocate, that, it was able to come to me, but I hope I wasn't too chutzpahdik, but I basically just looked her in the eye and I said, that's why Sarah Schneer started the Beis Yaakov movement, to crush people's neshamas.
But you still wanted to go there.
Happy. She wanted, because socially it was good.
Right.
They are wonderful, and it's not. I'm not trying to knock anyone. Every school is striving to be the best, to be the top, and they think like, well, this is not the top child, but they're so wrong. Like, you don't know who the top child is.
Right.
Each child could be a top child in their own way, and if we look at it through a Tafkid filter, and we say like, how do we bring each child to their Tafkid? One thing I tell parents when the children have any kind of learning disability, but I think really any child, find things that they're good at. And whatever you're giving them, tutoring or therapy or anything else, also give them equal proportionate doses of things that they're good at, that they can see success.
Right.
It's really important that each child feels that they have a place where they can shine.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think the schools have to be reminded, like, it's so important to have the arts in the schools. I remember watching you in your plays when you were in high school, and you just shone on the stage like, wow, that's incredible. My daughter was the head of dance in her recital, in her high school.
She's so talented, yeah.
And she and this other girl were co-danced ahead. It was just, incredible. So many people came over afterwards and they said, wow, what an incredible job. But unfortunately, they don't do production every year. So she had that time to shine. We need to look at the girls and the boys, actually, and give them more opportunities, more moments. I mean, so there are some out of the box programs that have started. There's not enough.
There's also extracurricular things. Like I'm thinking specifically about, is it called? I wish I knew what it was called, but there's like this music program where the boys get kind of like this big brother mentorship, but also learn music and put out quality, arts like music, singing, something.
That's very important. Unfortunately, because of the hours that the boys are in yeshiva, they don't really have time to do extracurricular activities.
Is not encouraged either.
Well, there is a yeshiva in Muncie called Yeshiva Sharei Razim, where they actually instill some of these arts and talents into the school day, where they actually have a band. They have a marching band.
Oh, wow. That's
and
great.
They teach the boys acrobatics, and they have some other things they teach. There's a yeshiva that I heard of in New Jersey that is actually teaching kids how to fix things, woodworking.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Darche do that? They also have it's kind of a program.
I think they have a little vocational program.
Which I think is smart. Every school should have both,
There's actually a program that I'm working with now that I'm actually advocating for some of the students, where it's in the Sephardic community, where they actually are housed within a general education school, which is beautiful. But these boys are on a vocational track. And instead of just sitting there and teaching them math and reading all day, I mean, these boys are not going to read Shakespeare and they're not going to do calculus, but they're teaching them practical math. Like if you want to become a barber, how do you cut hair? If you want to get a real estate license, how do you do that?
Yeah.
Do you want to, become an electrician? And they'll teach them practical life skill math.
And this is something that we were speaking about earlier, which is that the cookie cutter way of lens of education doesn't really do justice for our kids, who will succeed in life very well, even if they're not succeeding very well in a school setting. I know that we were speaking a little bit about that.
We were actually talking before about that, and I said to you, think about some of the smartest kids you knew in school that did really, really well in that system. Did they all do really well in life? Some did and some didn't, right? And there were some kids who were really struggling in school who actually were very successful in life. Because their struggles and their difficulties actually made them strong people, and they were creative. And when they found their lane, they just ran with it, and they really flourished. So it really depends. Now, I'll tell you one thing that it might sound a little controversial, but I have had this position on Limudei Kodesh that I remember sitting with my daughter's 6th grade teachers. We had a meeting, and I said to them, look, my child came home one day and said, Mommy, I hate math. Okay? I never want my child to come home and say, Mommy, I hate Chumash. I hate Navi. I hate Halacha because I got a D. I got a C. I got an F. How do you get an F in davening? How do you get an F in Chumash? I don't think they should be grading Limudei Kodesh, because it's part of us. I think it's so important that children are encouraged to learn at their level any way they can. You know what? If one child will never be able to understand how to read Rashi, Baruch Hashem, we have today Art Scroll. It has translations. You can go to somebody and say, what does Rashi say? You could ask ChatGPT. I'm not recommending that.
Right?
What does Rashi say? I think it's really, really important to instill in the children a love of Torah and mitzvos that transcends a school atmosphere, that gives them the emunah and bitachon and love of Hashem and connection to Hashem. And that's what we're missing, because we're focused on knee socks.
Right.
Are the socks high enough?
Yep.
Are the socks low enough?
It's
Too
like
low?
Standardized Yiddishkeit. I know that I was mentioning to you that I call it social frumkeit. It's like we can't always get to the neshama, but we'll make it a social norm. And I think that's wrong. But I also wonder how much responsibility is being our parents eliminating from their lives, and how much responsibility is being put on the schools. There's such an interesting balance, this shift going on. We expect a lot from the schools, but we don't always respect the schools. And then parents also, so there's such a weird balance.
I really
shift.
believe the parents and the schools have to be partners with each other. Like, I always appreciated when my kids' schools had these technology workshops, discuss challenges that we go through.
Right.
I wish, in some ways, I wish there were somewhat more of them. But I also think that we have to not judge so much these kids. Kids are going through a lot. Like, when you were growing up, there were certain challenges kids had. When I was growing up, there were certain challenges kids had. It's nothing compared to what kids have today. Access to certain things.
Yeah.
The world is moving at a pace. And there's scary things too. I mean, a teenager today, they've gone through the pandemic. They went through October 7th. I mean, they've seen a lot of trauma. Understanding.
We need to respect the kids too. I think it's really three-part, because what I heard growing up is, like, you know, the parents have to be on the same team, so to speak, as the school. So you try to pick a school that you feel aligns with you. But there's also this element of the kids need to feel respected in the school environment. And when the kids can feel respected and then see the school, their parents and their work being, like, you know, the pride, like, I think there's a whole communication, like, it's a whole connection really that needs to be fostered. And, like, if any one of those parts is, like, severed, it's not going to translate. It's not going to translate if the parents in the school are not working, and you don't think your kid's going to just take the best of it.
Right.
And if, like, the school doesn't respect the kids, but they keep calling the parents, how should we, like, it's just not going to flow. And I think that we really have to help that work. Like, there's a school in Boston that, I don't know, I'm not part of that kahila, but they had all these events like Matzah Shabbos, where, like, the kids had an essay or some kind of display, and the parents and the teachers were invited. And, like, it just, when I heard it, I thought, wow, that's beautiful. They're doing something together. They're shopping nachas with the kids together.
Right.
Yeah.
Even on a smaller level than a whole school and a whole parent. I'll tell you, my daughter has had this the same math tutor for years. My daughter's least favorite subject. So my daughter's math teacher every year expressed an interest to go to my daughter's dance recitals. Dance sometimes was oxygen for her because school sometimes wasn't. And again, it's a balance. Like, we're trying to find an outlet for the child that where they can shine. This teacher came every year.
Wow.
And I was talking to a group of teachers on the last day of school a few years ago. I was invited to speak, and I was giving a parent's perspective of, like, what makes a teacher great. And I said, you know what? My daughter's teacher, of her least favorite subject, is her favorite teacher. Because I think a teacher who cares about the students, that care transcends everything else. And that's so important. You know, there is a delicate balance, and we also have to be present for our kids, and we also have to, like, watch what they're doing and see what's going on, and, you know, make sure that problems don't, you know, become larger problems. If we see our child is not completing their workbook, we have to figure out, like, why are they not? What's going on? You know, what's going on in school? And I remember as a kid, I used to feel, like, annoyed sometimes if I came home from school, my mom was like, "What? How's your day? What happened?" And she'd ask me all these questions, and thinking, like, getting interviewed every day. But, you know, it's important to talk to the kids and make them feel that that their day matters to you, and you want to know everything, and that you're not judging their day. Meaning they had a hard day, something happened, or, you know, even, you know, they acted out in class, or something went wrong.
Right.
I think gently you can guide them to the right thing, but it's so important to just give them a listening ear and not make them feel like you just react and judge. Because then they'll shut down. They won't tell you anything.
There's so much more to education than subjects. That's
true. Well, the other thing is the education parents can do at home, right? Is that, number one, kids see by example.
Right.
I give a Navi shir in my living room on Shabbos afternoon.
Oh, you do?
I do.
That's so fun.
I love it. I love learning Navi, and I have a few friends over, and we sit and we learn Navi, and I look forward to it. And it was Simchas Torah, and my son was so excited because he was dancing with holding some of the Nevi'im that were in the Aron Kodesh, and he came over to me. He's like, with the Navi that I was learning at the time, and he said, "Mommy, look, I've got, I got Malachim."
Wow.
And he was so happy. And like they knew, they saw.
Yeah.
But I think also the kids are smart and they pick it up. So, again, I don't care if my daughter says, I hate math. I care if she says, I hate Chumash. So if she sees that I want to learn, that I'm challenging myself, that I want to have a Devar Torah at my Shabbos table, and we can't finish the meal before we have a Devar Torah, but it should be something, interesting. It should be something that speaks to us, but it's meaningful to me. When I take my kids to Colombia and they're able to actually see this community where the people are so excited about every mitzvah that they do. One thing Rabbi Gold said when we were there was he told them the gift that they're giving to him was in Kriya Shema, every day we say Hayom. So he says it's possible that we become too routinized sometimes. We who are raised with it, that we don't necessarily appreciate the Torah and mitzvos and the connection with Hashem every single day as if it's new. And looking at a community like that of geirim who work so hard to do every single mitzvah that they do and to come close to Hashem, you really get an appreciation of Hayom.
Wow.
It gives it anew. And I really think like we all can learn from each other. And by the way, they appreciate seeing us and they appreciate seeing how routinized we are because they think it's great that we don't even think twice that our boys put the yarmulke on in their sleep.
Yeah.
Or we make a bracha before we eat something and it's intuitive to us because we learned it, right? It's not to them. They have to learn it. So there's a balance, right? When I've had Rabbi Yoel here, like the first time he was in Brooklyn, I was driving him around with his wife and we were looking and I said, okay, there's a shul and there's a shul and there's a shul and there's a shul. This is yeshiva, this is a Beis Yaakov. And they were just all in awe.
Yeah.
Wow. So many shuls. Oh, you can buy kosher food at this store and at that store. And there's, 15 restaurants on Coney Island Avenue. And,
Flatbush is the place to show someone.
Weird. It's exciting. It's really exciting. Your program is about out of town, but you come from Brooklyn. So I think you also have that perspective sort of in reverse that I have. But
someone once told me about the and also concept of like, it can be so convenient and also frustrating. It can, there's so many truths at the same time. And that's a theme that I'm also hearing that you've been able to balance so well. Like, it can be like with your children, with Arnachani, like it can be so meaningful. And also there can be challenges involved. Just because something stressful comes up doesn't mean it's all bad. And just because it's very meaningful to you doesn't mean it isn't also stressful sometimes.
It's true. I think just getting back to the parenting aspect is the number one thing that we really need to work on instilling in our children is a love of Torah and mitzvos, a love of wanting to be close to Hashem. It's not going to be from forcing or it has to come from giving the children experiences that help them. And I tell you, like, I feel like giving children hands-on experiences is so much more meaningful to them than classroom. And I just want to tell you about this exciting project that I'm working on now with Rabbi Gold. It's about to come out before Tisha B'av. We actually were working on a new film. The film is about after the second Beis Hamikdash was destroyed by Titus Harasha. He stabbed the parachos with his sword. He said, Hashem is dead, and I've killed the God of the Jews. And he wrapped the menorah and some of the other kelim in the parachos, and they took that to Rome and paraded it through the city. There have been some recent sightings of menorah, possibly in the Vatican, and the Vatican has never really given a straight answer as to whether they do or don't have these objects, which is interesting because if you don't have it, then just say, I do not have your menorah, but they will not say that. So Rabbi Gold actually was able to get firsthand stories about people who either saw the menorah or had interesting interactions with the Vatican where it would lead us to believe that there's something more to the story that they're not telling us. We went to Rome, and this was this past February. I asked Rabbi Gold, like, can I bring my kids? Because I felt like that experience is going to be like really life-changing. And there's so much history. Like Rome has so much Jewish history. Everywhere you look, I mean, people don't know the Colosseum was built by money that the Romans plundered from the base of Mikdash. People don't know it. It's really exciting because through the process of trying to discover where the menorah is, we met people actually who could trace their families back to when the base of Mikdash was destroyed. And they had different minhagim, a different nusach, Romi, not Sfarad or Ashkenazi. They blow the shofar a different way, and they say that that's how they blew it in the base of Mikdash.
Wow.
And the interesting thing for my kids was just having that experience, just really living our history instead of just being taught in a book and tested on it. And I felt it was an incredible opportunity. In fact, Rabbi Gold brought his 3 sons, and I brought my 2 younger kids, and who were teenagers. And I actually asked all the kids when we landed in Rome, tell me, what do you know about ancient Rome and the Jews? So one child said, oh, they destroyed the base of Mikdash and they invented pizza. Another one said they destroyed the Bayis Rishon. I said, no, Rome destroyed the Bayis Sheni. And he said, I said, Bavel destroyed the Bayis Rishon. He said, isn't Rome Bavel? I said, oh boy, we have a lot of work cut out for us.
Yeah.
We gave them this experience, and now any one of the kids who came on the trip with us could tell a lot about
Oh yeah, now they're going to know more than anyone else. And they're going to have more connection to it.
It's incredible because they did connect to it. In fact, my kids told me afterwards, Mommy, we learned more in that 1 week than we learned in an entire year in school and history. Wow. When we take our kids to these type of places, we're actually teaching them and we're giving them a lot of perspective in life. And they need that. We're sort of expanding their worldview.
Yeah.
It's so important.
And that's how we break out of like the one track mindset of like, this is the way it is, this is the way it has to be, this is the way to look at the world. And really you're giving your kids a gift of like, of that perspective shift. So much strength that you have spoken about, so much opportunity that you've shared, so much opportunity that you've jumped on through the challenges that you've had. And I want to know if you want to share anything, any last remarks.
One thing I want to just impart is that people shouldn't give up. And even when things seem very dark, very bleak, you don't know why you're going through whatever you're going through. And Hashem has a lot of purpose for you. Whatever you're gaining your Schutz factor, you're growing, you're becoming stronger. You have no idea where Hashem's going to take you next. You don't know. We're sort of all on this journey of life. Like if you told me 5 years ago, oh, you are going to be doing advocacy, you're going to end up adopting a community in South America, and then you're going to adopt another one, and then you're going to go traveling around with Rabbi Gold and a film crew and making these inspirational films, and I'd be kind of like, what? And you know what? Looking back, every single experience I had in life kind of prepared me for the next one. And I think, like, for example, advocating and standing up for parents of special children against lawyers in front of judges kind of helped me advocate for these communities that I'm working with. Advocating for the communities that I'm working with led me to Rabbi Gold and actually trying to inspire others with our films, because if we feel it's inspirational or meaningful, then we believe that other people will also. And we try to tap into projects that will really help uplift and inspire, because, like I said, the world could be so dark sometimes. Yeah. And the chizuk is that I think if we just understand that it's not always going to be so dark, and you know, we're this close to Mashiach, we're just this close. Just hold on a little longer.
Beautiful message, and I think that's why I'm sharing this, because like you just said, if there's inspiration that felt good and amazing and inspiring for me, then it can be shared with others. We need to like just go right into that space.
We've got to be mechazik each other. I mean, like this we learned from all the different recent experiences. First of all, like during the pandemic, right? I thought, like, this is so interesting because, like, going into a grocery store wearing masks and gloves and you can't see each other's face, right? You can't stand near each other. I said, maybe that's how Hashem feels in Galus, because he had to put us in Galus. He can't be so close to us, and he's has Hester Panim. He's hiding his face from us, right?
Wow, Hester Panim,
He's
real.
Hester Panim, that's painful to him, and maybe he needed to give us that feeling of pain that, like, I want to be close to you, but I can't be. And I think that was kind of a message. That was like the message I took from it. And
I need to think about it that way.
And
that's something.
That's how I was thinking about it. And then everything going on with October 7th, and you also see like certain, like the achdus that people got together and how powerful that was. It is. Right. It's so powerful. So I think like we have to just be mechazik each other, help each other through the next step, whether it's through, chinuch or other life issues, but we're just being there for each other is just so important and really helps. And you know what? When someone has a day when they hate Holland, we should be there to be mechazik them and uplift them and help them to realize that they have a tafkid. Everybody has a tafkid in their life.
I love it. Thank you, Juby. Thanks for sitting with me. I love you too. Thank you. You see, you're still uplifting me, even though I live many miles away. This is what I love about people, that like, we're not just one thing. Our story deserves to be shared, but we're not just our story. And there's so much positivity and fun and opportunity, like just left for all of us to just grab and take. So good night.